And, I wish some of the other friends of, streamers that I know could do that. But I don't feel that, why didn't I get something? Why haven't I popped off? Why haven't I got like millions of views on my videos and things like that? That's something I think a lot of people might need a harsh reality check on, is when somebody else does well, it doesn't mean that you're entitled to do well as well. But so in terms of what I do now, I feel like I'm in a good spot where I'm a bit more at ease with how difficult it is to get guests on. I might evolve the podcast into being a little bit something different, where maybe I'm talking more on my own like this about other things and getting guests on when I can, and maybe not covering the stories so much as their opinions on things. And or maybe I just won't do any more ever again. Who knows? But in terms of, finding life. Hello, my name is Minges and welcome to Unfiltered Conversations with Creators. In this episode, I'll be talking about myself and my journey as a streamer, content creator, and podcast host. This might have been one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. So if you do enjoy what I have to say, I would really appreciate if you'd leave a like, a comment, and subscribe for more Conversations with Creators. All right. Well, I've started every one of these podcasts off with a food-related question, kind of to tie in something to do with that food question to something about that streamer. But since this is just me and I have to get myself talking, I'm going to start by just giving a few hot takes on my food choices. So I think, as I have an Italian background, this might be really weird, but I hate olives, and olives are a big thing in the culture and the heritage of Italian Australian people. And the other one is also something that my ancestors will probably hate, is I love pineapple on pizza. And I think it goes well together. I think it's a really, really good topping. One of my favorites, barbecue chicken actually, is my favorite pizza. So yeah, I'm a little bit all over the place, a little bit of a contradiction, I'd say. So if I had to tie that in with anything about myself, I am a little bit of a contradiction. So yeah, I'll start with how I start everyone else's as well, with how I grew up, what I was into as a kid. So I wasn't really a huge gamer as a kid. So I did have some experience. I remember vaguely just using a controller on an Atari and playing an Atari for like maybe a game or like 2 minutes at the most. Just at a family friend's house, and then got snatched off me by my parents or the other adults there, who were all like intrigued about this one thing, and were like, yeah, our turn again, and just went straight back into it. So I vaguely remember that. I can't remember the game. It might have been like Pong or something. And then I remember my uncle having a Nintendo, the original Nintendo, and then we got one too not long after, and I was really into playing Mario with my sister and my dad, and I have a lot of good memories growing up of playing those kinds of games with my family, having a laugh, also taking it easy on my sister sometimes, but then also asserting my dominance in some games and really just showing her who the real winner is. But I do remember watching my dad a lot. I wouldn't say grind a game, but really do his best to try and finish it. And those were back in the days where there was no like saving, there was no memory cards. So you had to leave the console on all night, all day, and hope nobody else touched it. So I remember seeing him come home and go back to whatever he was playing and try and finish it. And I remember he finished Super Mario Brothers 3, and level 8 was like a really scary lava underground sort of level, and watching him finish that, and I was like, this is crazy, this is insane, how did he do that? And I could never do it, and I thought that was really impressive back in the day. But yeah, so we grew up, I did have a Nintendo as a kid, like I said, and then we went to PlayStation when it came out, and I wanted a Nintendo 64. I remember my dad was like, those are childish games, you're about to be, I think I was like 10 or 11. He's like, you're about to be a teenager. You won't enjoy these cartoony games that Nintendo has. Let's get a PlayStation. And um, he pushed me in that direction, and I don't regret that at all. I think it was a really good choice because we had things like Gran Turismo, Need for Speed, um, Tekken, a lot of fighting games and racing games mainly. And me and my dad had good competition with a lot of those games, and trying to beat each other's scores, trying to beat each other. Lap times would come down to like a half a millisecond and everything like that. And, I'd come home, he'd set a new record, and then he'd come home the next day and I'd have a new track record just waiting for him. Like I'd be waiting at the dinner table, like, you check the leaderboards today? Did you see what happened? And just things like that. It was really a lot of memories like that of gaming. Trying to spend time with my dad when he was busy at work, but him not actually being there, and then knowing he was maybe thinking about me when he was doing the same thing, like when I was either doing homework or I was gone to bed much earlier than him. That he was, had me in his mind as he was enjoying himself at the same time. So I guess we're kind of connected in that way, which is always something I look back on and I think is kind of cool. But yeah, I feel like I had as much as my parents might not agree with me, I think I had a really good balance when it came to gaming and doing other things. I wasn't always cooped up inside. I like to spend a lot of time outside. I played a lot of basketball, especially when we moved to a bigger house when I was about 16, and we had a huge backyard, and I spent a lot of time outside. And a lot of my days were spent playing basketball as a kid. And when I was about 16, 17, I got into like a junior state league, and I played in two other teams at the same time. So for about a year or two, I had like three different teams to play for, and at least 3 or 4 different training sessions. So it was like 7 days of basketball in 6 days of actual physical activity. Like I had 2 games on Saturday. So I used gaming as more of maybe my alone, relaxed time. Obviously, homework had to be done first, and I feel like I had a good balance when it came to school, homework, sport, and being physically fit and active, as well as going out with friends, to the movies, or going out with girls, or as a group, just hanging out at someone's house, and gaming at the same time was kind of probably, it wasn't a priority. It was something I enjoyed, but it's something I could have gone for weeks without doing. And then I think maybe when we finished high school was when I think gaming started to take over a bit more, because that's kind of when online gaming actually started to happen. So I'm showing my age. Online gaming wasn't really a thing. And I even had terrible internet until I moved to that new house when I was about 16, 17 anyway. So I went from dial-up to cable, and that was when PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 crossover sort of happened. So online gaming started happening, and it wasn't really something I really cared about too much. And then basically when we finished high school, we used soccer and gaming to keep like activities going with friends, because after high school we'd go to different universities, or some people got full-time jobs, some people had like apprenticeships, so they'd split time between work and study, and we kind of got to know each other's schedules. And sometimes we'd have like an indoor futsal team or something that we'd play together like once a week, just to make sure we had something to do together and keep in touch. And also gaming, so we would go to people's houses and just play FIFA. And I remember sucking at FIFA like really bad, because I'd never played like a sports game. And so it was FIFA 2006. It was right before the World Cup happened as well. And soccer took over in Australia because they qualified for the World Cup for the first time in years, and we all wanted to play FIFA, and we got into that. And I remember going home one night after getting like walloped by everyone, and everyone was laughing because I didn't know the buttons and I couldn't adapt quick enough. And I was like, nah, I can't have this. So I went out and bought FIFA the next day, and that was the first time I really like grinded something with the intention of being better than other people. And like every other time would be like, yeah, I might beat my dad at a lap time, or yeah, I want to get good at this story, or I want to finish this story and get all the trophies, or I want to do all the objectives and everything. But that was the first time I was like, I want to beat someone at this game. Like I really want to I really want to thump them and make up for losing that so badly that one time. And I felt like I got pretty good at FIFA. And after that, it was kind of like FIFA and COD went alternating for me. So, the new COD would come out, I'd play that. New FIFA would come out, I'd play that. And I'd go between the two. And online gaming started happening. And the first time someone asked me to join their clan on Call of Duty, it was online. And, back in that day, the lobbies didn't disband, so you would play with the same people over and over unless you left to re-queue the game. So you would always be in the same lobby with people. You kind of recognize names. Some people would have microphones, most people didn't, and then you kind of get chatting, and you would make acquaintances, I think, with people, and then clan wars and things started happening in Call of Duty, and that's when I started playing with online people and trying to like be really good with some people I didn't know before, and I think we had a good time back then. But it was like I said, Clan Wars came out, and on COD, it was fun to. I remember them being like at a stupid time, like something like 4:00 in the morning on a weekday, and at the time I was still like working part time and studying at university, so I had the time, I had the flexibility, I had no real commitments. I was still living at home, so it was still fun to get up and do something that. I had my mind set on something like, we got to get this one. We get like a gold clan tag or something like that. And that was something we worked for a while. And that was cool too. And that actually took me into, this is a long-winded story about getting into the YouTube world, because YouTube wasn't even a thing. I am 36 now. And so back then, the Call of Duty came out, I think it was maybe Modern Warfare 2 or Black Ops 1 came with the ability to save clips to YouTube from your console, which was huge. And there was a whole editing theater mode to it. So you could watch the game from a third person point of view, from other players' point of view. You could save the games. You had so much space. You could rewatch games of other people. And so, people started leaving games to save their clips. And I ended up saving a few clips too, which I still have. And I only made a YouTube account because I wanted to save some COD clips on Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops, I think. And I still have them up there. I think I might have hidden them, but I think they're still up there. And just, people I'd run into all the time. So I had a clip of, throwing, knifing them from across the map or something random. So that was how I first really made a YouTube account. YouTube was really kind of different back then. It was a lot of like cat videos, animals doing weird things, people's home videos. It wasn't really, at least not to my knowledge, a lot of people doing gaming content like it is today. Like, it was completely different. And around this time too, I was still at the stage where my cousin only lived down the road, and sometimes he would come over. And like barely without agreeing, we'd just look at each other like, yeah, FIFA? You're like, yeah, all right. And just come inside. He's holding his own controller. He comes in, we play FIFA or Call of Duty or whatever we're playing that day. And, we just hang on the couch and talk about life, talk about funny things, talk about other people, talk about ourselves, just while we're playing this game. And, I remember someone saying it to us once. It was probably like someone's girlfriend or something was over and was like, you guys are hilarious. You guys talk so much crap. And I remember having this conversation with him one day. We were like, we should make this like a TV show or something. Like, how could we do that? Because there was nothing like that back then. And we thought, well, the only way to get paid from gaming is maybe to be a game tester, but we're not that good. But we're kind of funny, so maybe we could, record the TV of the gameplay somehow. I'm not sure, and then like have a video camera set up and maybe go on like a PBS, like a public channel or something. And I don't know, it could be funny. And I remember having that conversation one day, and obviously nothing came of it. But it's funny that YouTube gaming and people streaming and doing all those kinds of things has become so easy now. And I look back at it like I probably would have given it a big shot back then, at being at late teens, early 20s, having the time and capabilities to stream or game or do something like that. I really would have done it back then. And so I kind of went from eventually people, leave your life. They grow up, they stop gaming, they, get married, have kids and all that. So, I went away from gaming as well. When I got married and the kids were born, just to help out a bit more, because I couldn't be spending my nights, raging at FIFA while our baby's crying for a feed at 10 o'clock at night. So, for our kids were born 13 months, well, 2 weeks and 12 months apart. So 13 months apart. So we pretty much went from, having one baby to two babies, and, wife is struggling with all that, and I'm trying to help out as well. So I gave up gaming and eventually ended up getting back into it when Warzone came out. So I didn't know what to play, and I knew some people were playing. They used to play like, gun game and like my cousin and his friends as well. So I would join in with them, and then, Warzone was out, but it wasn't really like, oh, do you want to try Warzone? Nah, let's just play multiplayer. And we eventually got into Warzone, and like I was terrible, of course, and it was frustrating, but it did get me, and then I had to get into it and improve. And then so obviously that took me to YouTube to how to get better at a game and all the best guns to use, and these are the little tips and tricks that you can do. And I remember watching Benny Central, Expel, and Iceman Isaac, and I had a Twitch page from probably a FIFA streamer or something, but I can't remember. I can never remember how I set it up or how long it's been around for. But yeah, so I went from Iceman Isaac's YouTube page and came across to Twitch and found live streaming, and was like, this is pretty cool. You can interact with a streamer, and there's other people there who are trying to get better, and watching the same thing as you. Everyone's making funny comments, or you're laughing at someone who's raging and like being toxic. They get banned, everyone laughs, kind of thing. So yeah, it was really cool finding community that way. Especially, like I said, people kind of drifted out of your life. You might lose some friendships, and you find a bit more community online, which is funny to say that, because then it was around about that time where COVID happened, and a lot of people around the world had no choice but to be stuck at home and have no social life essentially outside of their house. So they're either, we would play online poker with friends that I would play soccer with. We couldn't play soccer anymore. So we'd play online poker. We'd play Call of Duty, we'd play FIFA. And I found myself during the day at work craving a bit more like social interaction. So, Twitch became my thing. And one day I saw Iceman Isaac playing with, I think it might have been Devere or someone else, and Exact. And, they had both died. Exact was being spectated by them, and he did this like crazy finesse inside a house outside of Dam in Verdansk, and just finessing in and out of a house, fighting 2 or 3 teams, doing the things now that I've seen him do for like 3-4 years straight. And I was so impressed with that. And then I think eventually Iceman might have rated him, or I just clicked on his name and went and found Sock Gang, and that was really a game changer, because I really felt like I found my place in an online community. There was so many really, really nice people there. The mods were just friendly and welcoming. You could be weird, you could say funny things, but everyone had each other's back if someone went overboard or if someone came in being very toxic. And like I said, finding community and friends in an environment where you're kind of isolated from the rest of the world. And a lot of people going through the same thing. And I think a lot of people, we kind of spoke about it, but it was also like an unspoken thing at the same time, where you kind of knew that you were coming to the same place every day to find something, and really, like, even if it's just forgetting about the problems of the world for a couple of hours a day. And obviously finding Sock Gang, which is Exact, and Joe, who used to play together all the time. It was two tight-knit communities, and they're pretty much a lot of shared people, and same with Iceman as well. A lot of people would go between the three, so it was really cool getting to know people over those kinds of years. And And eventually I would see people in the chats and be like, wow, that's another streamer. And I remember seeing names like BH Slim, Rachel Hayes, and Parcelli, and I was like, wow, these guys are streaming too. This is wow, they're like celebrities or something. Because like I had this idea that all the streamers who were like on a pedestal or something, and it was like you'd see people rate each other, and then like, oh my god, and like, can I talk to these people? Is it like are they too far above my level, or can I chat with them? But you end up making friends with a lot of people, and realize how many people started streaming themselves and just wanted to find their own community as well. So like there was guys like Blitzwing and D I saw streaming, and I was like friends with them as well, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to try this too. So I looked into it. I found out that I could use my laptop and like a $30 capture card and like a $20 webcam, which was terrible, and I used my headset microphone or like a desktop microphone, a USB one. It was the cheapest setup you could find, and I think my audio doubled up for about 3 months. I didn't have my audio set up properly, and it was terrible, but eventually got that sorted, and we just played with the homies, man, and just vibe with them. And I didn't really think I would make anything of it, and I still don't. I just wanted to have a place on the internet where I could have what I found in Sock Gang, where it was just people coming to hang out. You can laugh at me breaking my legs. You can laugh at me doing, terribly at a game. I would play retro games, not just Call of Duty, and it was really fun. And there was guys like Ronin, who would come in, and it was obviously like a weird time where everyone wouldn't go to work and stuff. So being the time difference that it was, me in Australia, and people from the US coming to hang out, was amazing to me, because it would be like maybe 5 o'clock in the morning for them when I would go live, which is like 8 p.m. for me. And like guys like Ronin would just come in, and he like, I'm going to lurk while I go back to sleep. And he would do that to support everybody, really. And I always thought that was insane, because I would do the same thing while I was at work. I would have all the homies tabbed up, and just go in every once in a while and say hello when maybe the chat went quiet, or like I had a quiet period at work. But Ronan was always there, and he was always willing to jump on at 6 o'clock in the morning to play some games with us and have a good time. We ended up playing some tournaments and stuff together on Rebirth, which was really cool. And he had a big influence on what I did, because I looked at him like he was really, really good at the game, and he wasn't getting the recognition I feel like he deserved. He was a really entertaining guy to watch on stream. He would play other games as well, and he was always really, really good vibes. But I think it was just, maybe too many people around that size, and he couldn't break through. And I'm not sure if it was rough on him, but I hope it wasn't. I hope he didn't take it to heart, because I always wondered about him. And after a couple of years, after maybe a year of streaming, I went to go do an anniversary, like my birthday stream around about October, and I was like, I'm going to take a week off work and kind of enjoy my birthday, and I'll stream like the hours that I see everyone else streaming. So it'll be like my daytime, peak nighttime hours for them, and have a really good week and do all that. And at the start of that week, we found out that that Ronin sort of he wasn't with us anymore. So he decided he had enough of everything. So that was a really rough time, obviously, for a lot of people. His family, first of all, and a lot of the friends that we had made, and people he would play with all the time. And I'd never felt like I was his best friend or something, and it affected me more than anyone else. But I didn't want to maybe talk about it too much, but it really it really messed with my head for a long time, and it really got me down. And he's somebody that I think of every day. And I put something for him in my intro video when I go live, and it was such a sudden thing that you'd never like. That was the first time I've ever experienced something like that from a friend of mine, and I consider him a friend. And anyone who says online friendships aren't the same as real life friendships, I think are just mixed up, because you know, that was that was a friend, and that was something that I really felt. So for a few months there, I was reflecting, and like, you always kind of think maybe could have read the signs better, maybe I could have done more, and you feel guilty. But I think it's important to try and maybe have those conversations, so we can, as people, look out for each other more, maybe, and try and look out for each other, and look for those signs maybe sometimes, and also not just be reactive like that, but also proactive in that maybe we can just ask how someone's going without them looking like they need it. And just being open about your own struggles sometimes can make someone else feel validated for how they feel. And you might never know that. They might share your feelings and hear you talk about something, and will never say, yeah, me too, but they'll be thinking it and feeling it. And that's a real thing. That happens. I think that was a line that came up in the Art is War podcast, where I was like, just by the sheer amount of interactions you have with people on the internet, you're bound to have an impact on somebody. And I think it's important that people realize that they can have a really positive impact on people if they really wanted to. So that was something I wanted to talk about, because it was something that it's like a point that I'll never forget and never get over. I kind of wanted to just slink away as well and forget about streaming, because streaming was fun, but it didn't feel fun anymore, because that's someone who was always there, and now he wasn't. And it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right for a while. And I kind of developed like an imposter syndrome kind of thing. Like, I'm averaging 10 viewers now. And I was like, this is huge. I never thought I'd get more than 3 to get affiliate. And, I've got like 10 to 20 coming in easily every night. And for me, that was massive. To some people, that's what they get when they first start. But for me, 2 years in, that was awesome. And I felt like I didn't deserve it. And people were just coming in to come say hi out of pity, or like, having that imposter syndrome that like people don't really want to be there to watch you. They want to, they're just there to make you feel better about yourself, kind of thing, because you're not worth it. But so that was something that went through my mind for a long time. It probably still goes through my mind a lot. But it was around about that time where I started to get a few raids as well I remember Miss Stalker raiding me with like 20 people. That was huge. Art as well did the same thing. Bralik, I remember those two in particular, because they were about 30 odd people. And I remember feeling so unprepared and like I just anxious to get offline. I was like, as soon as the raid came in, my stomach sank. And not that I felt nervous, because I don't really feel nervous about a lot of things anymore. But I kind of just wanted to leave and end the stream. It was such a weird feeling, and it was a bit jarring. And I think it's something you need to get used to, maybe, because I'm not used to talking in front of a camera. And the reason I started streaming was to try and get more comfortable talking. I do have a bit of not really a stutter, but sometimes I have a bit of a slurring of my words, and I always want to feel more comfortable about talking, because I'm not very talkative in person. I'm more of the listener, and I don't say a lot, even though I think a lot. So I kind of wanted to have this environment where it forces you to talk streaming, because, if you're not talking, you're just sitting there in silence. It's hard to watch. When just someone's focused on a game, maybe it's different. But if it's hard to watch somebody who doesn't talk. So I've had it in my mind consciously ever since I started. Just keep talking. Just talk about something. Talk about what's on your mind, and it kind of gets me more comfortable. This right now is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, talking in front of a camera for this long. So I don't think I could have done this a long time ago. But yeah, it was good to experience this with other people at the same time. So a lot of people were streaming. You kind of develop relationships. You network with people, and you learn from other people as well. Like, you see things that your friends are doing. You're like, that's really good. I'll use that for mine. It could be a different game, or a something on their soundboard, or like a style that they've put on their overlays or something, and maybe things you don't like, and you think, I'm going to avoid doing this and doing that, and you kind of grow together, I think. And there's a lot of people that I've sort of seen both come and go or stay, and I've always looked up to everyone that I've watched on Twitch in some way, and tried to learn from them as well. And so I like to lurk in a lot of people's streams and get to know them and how they are. And that's something I've always done for a while. So eventually I thought about this podcast, and I thought it'd be good to hear what people have to say, and learn about their stories and how they see what it is they do, and any advice I can give. So yeah, I started floating the idea to a few people, and I got a list of people to talk to, and yeah, it was lucky enough that they all said yes, and they were all very, very generous with their time. And so the initial 6 people had a whole list of maybe like 20 people. Some I've asked, some I haven't asked, even to this day, and not for any particular reason. Maybe just they kind of stopped doing their streaming or content thing. But I've tried to take their stories and learn from all of them, and I think I have. I've really appreciated the time from everyone doing this podcast and learning about their stories. So, it's been a journey as well to learn about how to actually do the thing, because it can be hard. It can be hard to think of things to say, and luckily enough, in my role, I'm just basically asking the questions to get people talking. So I love learning about everyone's journeys and stories, and I've really enjoyed the fact that there's some people out there who enjoy watching the podcast as well. So I'm forever thankful for those people who have encouraged me, or had my back, or had a kind word here and there, for maybe when I feel like giving up, or when things are getting rough, or even when things are going good. And so there's a few people out there who I really notice, who will, even if it's something just like a like on a clip on Twitch, or sorry, on TikTok or YouTube, or Twitter, and like a retweet here and there, and that means the world. And support like that, they don't even have to do that. And I feel like it's saying thank you sometimes to some of the people who have just supported me in those ways is not enough. Like, saying thank you is not enough sometimes. But I've always felt that very grateful, that not only for the podcast, but even for streams, when people would come and just spend time. And one thing that I always said from the start was, I don't care about the subs. I don't care about you don't have to sub. You don't have to donate or do anything like that. And just, coming in to say hello, or lurking, or, like I said, liking a clip or something that I put out there. It's just like, that's huge to me. And that's something I've always thanked people for. And always felt very grateful that people would come hang out in the streams as well, especially because I go there and I go live to have that time with people, even though it's a funny dynamic being on stream with people that you know coming into chat, because having done this for a few years with a lot of the same names coming through, you get to know them a little bit, and it's hard because there's no direct communication between each other. You guys can see me and hear me, and all I'm getting is the sentences, or the emotes or something that I see, maybe even briefly between games. It's hard to reach out while you're playing a game. It's so hard. But also try and, watch people, what they're doing on their socials as well, just to try and get more of an idea of who they are. I love when people share more about them like that, because, I want to know more about who comes into chat as well. And you kind of get this idea about how people are when they come into your chat and talk to you and tell you about their lives and, their jobs or their personal lives. And, it doesn't have to be anything like in depth, but just hearing about how people's days are. While I'm playing a game it's just very relaxing to me, and it's something I think, I've always enjoyed, because I've always had that social side to gaming. Like I don't care too much about competing, even though that's great for some people. I know my limitations now. I'm getting old. I'm not going to compete in any high level competitions for a video game. So I'm here to vibe and hang out. And so when people come and do that, it feels very rewarding. And yeah, it's just something that I like I said from the start, trying to average 3 viewers on Twitch for a while, and then getting affiliate and stuff. I never thought that would go any further, but to have people that still come in, finding new people, it's really cool. And it's very humbling as well. Like, I'm not by any means someone who's like I have massive followage or social media numbers or anything like that, but I'm very happy and content with what I have, and I don't think of those numbers lightly. So it could be one person that comes in new for the rest of the year, and I'm thankful that one person comes in. So yeah, that's a lot of how I got started and streaming and things like that. I've always wanted to try and find something funny, and so even when it comes to making clips and YouTube content and stuff like that, I am a bit slack with my own stuff. It was hard going from Call of Duty to a different game, because Warzone 2 really did not feel like a fun time for me, and I felt really like it was a drag, and I kind of went away from a lot of the old retro games that I used to play, and I kind of found it back a little bit, but also finding Fortnite as well and playing with other friends who I'd never played with on Call of Duty. It's been refreshing, and it helped me level up a lot of the content that I make. Not that I make a lot of clips and things like that, but when I do, I found, after Call of Duty dropped, Warzone 2 dropped, I tried making a few different styles of clips, and with mixed success, and I wasn't having a lot of fun with it, and the gameplay itself wasn't fun. So for a while there, nothing really happened, and I was still playing Fortnite or other games with friends. But when I was like, I've got to start doing some other clips for the socials, because I enjoy making like TikToks and things like that. I enjoy the short forms. If it's a funny clip or something I find funny, I get so much enjoyment out of it, and it's sort of a weird thing to laugh at something that you've done and you find funny, but it's more rewarding that way, I feel like, when you really enjoy what you're making. But looking at how Fortnite was like a super established game, and how different I saw clips coming from Call of Duty to how Fortnite is. There's a lot of different, creativity, much more creativity, and a lot more storytelling, whereas Warzone tended to be the same sort of clips and maybe got a bit stale. Not just from myself, but watching a lot of people's. It was like, Stim, knock two people, throwing knife, do a slide cancel, something crazy happens, end clip. Maybe a few slow motion effects in there and glitch effects and things like that, but nothing that it kind of got repetitive after a while. It kind of got stale. And looking at Fortnite and how, just a different game and how people went about being creative in their storytelling and things like that. And at that time as well, working, having spoken to Brandon Wampus and guys like C-Preds and people like that who really understood that side of things, and then trying to get my own head around it as well. And I found this really fun way of doing things on Fortnite, which, making clips that are a bit memey and commentating over, which I never really enjoyed doing. Hearing my own voice back is the worst experience ever. But you kind of have to get over that, especially doing a podcast and, editing your own content for clips. So it's been super eye-opening. That's one thing I have been really thankful for, is being able to pick the brains of quite a few very talented creators, especially on the podcast. So, I mentioned C-Preds, who was a big inspiration for a lot of things, and he might not even realize, but just like having that conversation with him, that was pretty much the first time we'd ever really spoken. And just hearing him talk about all these different things, it was like he was talking directly to me and my experiences, like, being lazy with what I put out and not putting enough effort and time into it, and trying to really plan and storytell and do things like that. Same thing with Brandon, like learning just a higher level of effect, just adding more effort into the effects and the visual like quality of what you do. And I think that's one thing as well, with having since had that conversation with Brandon initially, we kind of started talking more, and that's something that I've been super thankful for the podcast. I've managed to have more conversations with Brandon, just in Discord, just in messages, and running ideas by him. And he's very, very generous with his time and his input, and that's someone I can't speak highly enough for, is Brandon the Wampus. He's started working with me on the podcast for the last few episodes as well, and just hearing him, the way his brain thinks with new ideas, fine-tuning some things, just his insights on other things, and for obviously all his editing qualities that he has. It's been really something that I've been thankful for, because that's like invaluable stuff. That is like amazing to have that opportunity. And like anyone who hasn't seen that one, that Brandon is someone I think everyone should be following, by the way. But check out the podcasts themselves, hearing his insights, even him being there just to listen to me complaining about people. That's one thing it's kind of opened my eyes a lot more in the content space, is I've reached out to a lot of different people. And that's something I didn't feel comfortable doing, but it's something you obviously need to do. If you want to get guests on a podcast, you need to ask them. And so I've been lucky enough that a lot of people have responded to me, very quickly and being great about setting up a time. There's some people who it's a bit more difficult, which is fair enough, because this isn't their priority. And that's something I had to get my head around as well, is, I might be very excited and passionate about this project, but someone else might not be as passionate. I mean, obviously never going to be as excited about it as me. So, but there's a lot of people out there who have never replied to me. And that's one of the most frustrating things, because, it comes back to just, even facing rejection from, like, say, if you're chasing after a girl or a guy or whatever, and just hearing a no sometimes is what you need to hear. But that whole culture of, no response is response enough is something that I never bought into. And it's, I'd rather hear a no and even be rude about a no than hearing nothing. So that's been one of the things that have kind of, it's been eye-opening in the space where, it's kind of the culture. I think Atlas said that it's kind of like, it's not because people are maybe necessarily rude or anything like that, but that's just the culture in the gaming space, especially behind the scenes, which has been something I've learned the last few months. And it's something that I don't necessarily always want to be around. So I don't know how many more podcasts like these that I'll do with guests and things like that. Just because it gets harder, the longer it goes to get more and more people in, and getting responses. But for the people who have come on, there's I think every single episode I've been super excited. When the person says yes, that's a massive excitement. Setting it up, and then I do get a little bit nervous before I do talk to them, even if they're my friends, even if I've spoken to them before. And just that excitement of the day it's ready and the day I'm ready to publish the thing. That day is like an endorphin rush that I love, especially Jowo and Exact were two of my end goals that I was like, if I could ever speak to these guys about what they do and have their story on, having that conversation with them was like, that was the end goal for me. And so I was, extremely surprised when they'd said yes. Initially, it took a while to get them on from, being full time and a lot of other commitments and a lot of other things that would happen. But we eventually did it, and I'm so thankful to have that opportunity. And the people who have watched the videos and given me feedback, and even all the other episodes, just to hear what they have to say. And I've taken on board so many people's comments and critiques or praises and things like that. And that's one thing that I'll never, I think, be comfortable with, is taking a compliment. I think every time someone's complimented me, I've had to just step away from the computer or just shut down the message or whatever and go back to it a little bit later. It's something I can't do. It's just something difficult. But I mean, so in terms of what I do now, I feel like I'm in a good spot where I'm a bit more at ease with how difficult it is to get guests on. I might evolve the podcast into being a little bit something different, where maybe I'm talking more on my own like this about other things and getting guests on when I can, and maybe not covering the stories so much as their opinions on things. And or maybe I just won't do any more ever again. Who knows? But in terms of finding life balance with streaming, editing, doing all those kinds of things, that's the hardest thing, because I've a young family and a full-time job, and this was like a passion project, and streaming is like my me time. So I feel like I've taken a lot of time for myself to do all these things, at nights sometimes, and trying not to neglect my family as well. So that's something that I'm very thankful that my wifey has been very understanding of and very supportive of. And she's always, she might not understand it when I say, I want to start a podcast. She might not get it, but then, I want to start streaming. She didn't really understand it, but eventually she makes the effort to get better at understanding what it is that I'm talking about and what I need. And sometimes that, I might need this sort of different level of support to what she's normally used to. And so I'm very thankful of that. And that's something I think a lot of creators might tell you about their partners, the ones that have a partner, that their support. And just like, if you're streaming at nighttime or you're creating content during the day and you have a family or even just a partner themselves, just for them to understand that you might need that time away from them, but it's not because you're ignoring them. And giving you that extra encouragement when you need it. It's something that's, so appreciated and very much needed. Because it can be a bit of a weird world to navigate sometimes. So I don't know what the goal is for the next few years. I'm happy with, doing, a few streams here and there per week. I usually do Wednesdays and Saturdays. I mean, I would always love to do more, but like I said, I have to find a balance. And, if this ideally would have become like a reliable second income, or like a bonus income as our lives get a bit more financially stressful with, a new house, schools, and everything like that. So just being transparent, I would love if this became a bit more viable. It isn't at that stage, and I'm kind of torn between if I want to push it that way or just keep it as something that I casually enjoy. And, it's weird to want to spend hours editing something that doesn't give you a return other than in the enjoyment itself, or like seeing the numbers as a result. And that's something that I think a lot of people have to come to terms with as well, is that sometimes it's okay to think that the numbers matter. I think it's hard to find that balance between being caught up and getting obsessed with it, and getting down about why is this short flopped? Why is this video getting no views? And obviously taking that as feedback, and that is the most reliable feedback you can get, is when something doesn't do well. As much as we like to think, there's a shadow ban, or like we're just unlucky, taking that honest view to there is something you can do to get better. There is always something else you can improve on. And that's something that I think I've always had a passion for, is improving on something that I'm not good at. And so, when I get to a stage where I'm comfortable and I feel like I'm okay with, I'm a bit more at ease. But, I still enjoy putting in, time learning how to do a different edit, or learning a different game, or putting in the time to put something together to try and get a result. And when it doesn't happen, I want to do it again to try and make it happen. And it just makes you enjoy, if something does really well, and not being egotistical about it. I think it's okay to enjoy when things do well, and not have a big ego about it, where you don't become arrogant, or you don't change and just think you're better than somebody just because something does well, or like you do something really well. I think it's important that's a lesson a lot of people might need to take, is, just because you're doing well at something doesn't mean you're a better person than somebody else. And I hope that I never give off that impression either, that I ever think that I'm better than someone, because I honestly believe in everyone else around me so much more than I believe in myself. And I take a lot of pleasure when I see people achieving things and doing better than me in a way, because I feel like they deserve it, and that they kind of are expected to be that. They're expected to be better than me. And like, I love seeing, people either getting a new partnership or achieving something in a game. I see people winning tournaments, or playing with a high level streamer, or they get a big raid, and I'm happy. I'm happy for them. I'm thankful. I've just seen CPreds get 100,000 YouTube subscribers, and that was insane. I love seeing, Bralik qualified for World Series of Warzone, and I wish some of the other friends of streamers that I know could do that, but I don't feel that. Oh, why didn't I get something? Why haven't I popped off? Why haven't I got like millions of views on my videos and things like that? It doesn't. That's something I think a lot of people might need a harsh reality check on, is when somebody else does well, it doesn't mean that you're entitled to do well as well. And that's something I hope I never give that impression of like I get jealous or anything like that, because I think if you ever really get to speak to me outside of, maybe a couple of minutes we ever spend on screen together or in chats together, you'll know how much I believe, and I'm happy that so many people are doing well out there. So it's been a pleasure in the podcast as well to talk to a lot of up and coming people as well, people who have achieved things, people who are going to go on to achieve things. There's some people who have maybe stopped in the content world, but they're kicking goals in doing other life activities and their, other businesses that they're doing. And, I like to keep up to date with what they're doing quietly on the side. They might not even know that I'm keeping up to date with them, but I'm super happy to see those people do really well. So I think for any advice that I'll give my past self, probably it's easy to say believe in yourself more, but believe in yourself more. And maybe try it earlier. I'm pretty late to this whole thing, but it's something that, I would encourage. I've encouraged a lot of people to stream before, even just for the experience. Try and read chat while you're playing a game. Try and be talkative for a couple of hours non-stop. And just you kind of appreciate when you come into a stream and someone's doing really well, how hard it is to do that sometimes. For some people, it might be more natural. But for people like me, it's something to work on. And I think it's a skill that if you want to try something new and learn something new, editing, creating a content piece of some sort and trying to improve at something, it can be very rewarding. And not because, you want to be a content creator, but also mainly just as a skill to improve on. So I would say anyone out there, just give it a shot, whatever it is. I mean, the worst thing that can happen is that you fail. And that's not even the worst thing, because you'll learn a lesson out of it. In terms of, I've got this list that I have with all the guests that I have on the podcast, and I'm trying to look at it and pick things that I haven't spoken about yet. And I kind of feel like I've rambled, but in terms of inspiration, I think anyone who knows me knows that I'm always in, Joe and Exact streams, and all the homies that I know. If you see me, I'm always lurking in a lot of people's different streams. But that community, Sock Gang, I take a lot of inspiration out of the people in there, not just Z himself. Because there's a lot of really, really good people out there. And, not taking inspiration in a content way. I'm talking as a human way. There's some great parents and some great friends. Inspiration, I think, has come to me in the forms of making some good friends and having them for the last few years, and hopefully for forever. People who have sort of stood by me and encouraged me as well, and who I go to. I don't know if they realize, but I'll always go to them. And there's only maybe two of them. So D and Beck as well are people that I go to for other advice, or just to hear them talk back to me. And I feel like, as friends, they inspire me a lot. So I think also dealing with negativity, that's another one that it's something that's it's so weird, because there's, you might put something out there and you'll get your likes, you might get some nice comments from your friends, but the instant that you get a stranger on there saying one thing, and it could be like a backhanded compliment, oh, you're good for an old guy, or geez, you've aged a lot since the last time I saw you, or you're trash. It could be one negative comment mixed in 10 positive ones, or 10 neutral ones, or whatever. But that one sometimes just sticks with you, and it shouldn't, and it shouldn't. And you consciously say to yourself, don't let it get to you. But it does. It's so weird. And I've heard psychologists talk about it, and, a few other people as well, that the internet is a really weird place to try and get your validation from, because there's so much anonymity with people who can just create an account on a social media platform and just spread hate and, make vile comments, or, really toxic things, and spread terrible messages, and, really influence people in a bad way. And there's no repercussions for them. So there's no discouragement on the online world to say a bad thing, because, generally, if you say something rude or mean or something to somebody, face to face, there's always a threat of a consequence. You could cop it back. You could you could get punched in the face. Any number of things could happen. But in an online environment where it's, you're anonymous, no one knows who you are, there's no consequences. So it can be, an eye opener to get, put yourself out there and exposing your fragilities and like your personality, and you putting yourself out there in the world sometimes. Like this is, it's a very vulnerable thing. So sometimes, you put your heart into something, you'll get some nice comments from your friends, and then one stranger will put out a negative comment, and it's hard to deal with. And it's something, some people might be better at it than others. But for me personally, I can usually brush them off if they're like obviously a stupid comment, but there's sometimes an innocuous one will just stick. And that's something, developing a thick skin and learning to deal with those kinds of moments is definitely something. And I think I have matured a little bit in the last few years of doing this. There's been a few weird moments here and there, but nowhere near some of the negativity and, toxicity that I've seen some other people face before. So I'm kind of thankful for that, but also kind of lucky as well, because I don't know how I would have dealt with a lot of the things some other people have dealt with before. But I think I mentioned this a little bit before, where I go for help and guidance. I think, people not knowing that they help me. There's a lot of you out there, and I think I'm very thankful. And without trying to name everyone that I know, if we've ever spoken, you've basically helped me in some way. So I just want to say thank you to anyone I've ever spoken to and anyone who's watching this. And if you've made it this far, I struggle to believe that there's anyone who's made it this far into a video about me just talking to myself, really. But if you have, thank you. I really appreciate you. And it's hard to say anything more than that to show my appreciation, but it feels like it falls so short of what I really feel, but I don't have the words to say that enough. So in terms of where this podcast goes from now, I would love if I could keep going with, multiple episodes and find out, from more and more people about their stories. I'm not expecting to be able to do that for a long time. I will keep reaching out and asking people, but if there's a change in the format of the podcast, maybe we'll kind of mix it up a bit more. If that gets things going a bit more, that might have to happen. But if you've made it this far, thank you again. If you could like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. That all really helps everything in all the best ways for the algorithms. And until then, I don't know. Thanks for being here.